Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today we are going to discuss about cash management in banks and financial institutions. So, the major topics we will be covering during the discussions will be managing cash at vault, ATMs, and then we'll be talking about the bankers' blanket insurance and limits of such insurance. Third point of discussion will be about process of accepting the cash deposits and withdrawals and the money laundering related reporting requirements and limits, and then limits for transactions set by internally set by the bank and also externally by the central bank. And then we'll be talking about handling of checks and negotiable instruments uh, as they pertain to be very closely cash related items, near cash items. Then will touch a little bit about foreign currency cash handling, different types of foreign currency notes, the limits and central bank's regulations, uh, the process of detecting the fake currency notes, and then we'll be talking about the central bank regulations on this handling of cash and cash related items, and finally we'll also discuss about clean note policy. So now let's go to the first slide where we discuss about the objective of the cash management. The objective of cash management in the bank is to optimize the use of the cash as a cash as a medium of transaction and cash payment. So banks need to handle cash, but the question always comes at the bank is how much cash is needed in a particular day of transaction. So in order to optimize the level of cash being held at the bank's vaults, ATMs, and at nostros, the objective of the cash management is to optimize the level of cash, neither to have too much of cash nor to be short of the cash at any point of time. So, cash handling and managing cash mostly involves the handling of physical cash and near cash instrument like checks and other negotiable instruments. So, it also even coins and currency notes are included. And now we go to the other slide. In banks, to handle cash, we have a cash department. Cash department is manned by head teller and tellers, and there are different modes of transactions for the tellers and head tellers. Actually, movement of cash from vault to cash counter, and then from one branch to another branch, or one bank to another bank, or taking the cash to the central bank. So there comes the cash in transit. So actually all the tellers are assigned certain limits for cash transactions. So each teller has its own teller account where the cash is transferred from the vault to head teller and then to the teller, for the accounting control of the cash being handled by the teller, and usually cash supervisor or the head teller makes the overall arrangement and management. And in order to track the movement of cash to and from the vault, uh, cash denomination books and vault logbooks and these teller cash proof sheets are used. Let us talk a little bit about teller cash proof sheets. Now I am going to the another slide, the fourth slide. The teller cash proof sheet is either an electronic or a physical worksheet where any cash being provided to the teller from the head teller or from one teller to another teller, inter-teller transfers, teller to head teller transfers, head teller to teller transfers. All these are recorded along with denominations so that if there is any any shortage of or excess of cash at the end of the day, these movements or the traffics of the currency notes to and from the tellers could be traced back and reconciled at the end of the day. So this is the purpose of the teller cash proof sheet. And obviously the denomination book or the bald cash book is the book which records the currency notes being in and out of the vault every day or each time the vault is opened, cash is taken out or taken in. Equivalent denominations have to be entered into the vault logbook. So this is how the denomination books works, and there is a separate vault logbook which records the uh, details of who entered the vault at what time and who left the vault at what time. So these all are mandatory requirements, and cash area is prohibited for other employees of the banks to enter except for the cash related areas or exceptionally the internal auditors or external auditors. And now going to the another slide, actually each teller is provided with a teller cash box, and tellers have certain limits depending upon the seniority of the teller and teller's capabilities, their transactional limits, like when they take deposits or they make payments of the checks, the limits are assigned, and these limits are internal limits for withdrawal and authorization or acceptance of deposit and authorization. So if the limit is if the amount is beyond the limit of teller, then the same goes for the approval by the head teller or by the operation manager or the branch manager, depending upon the amount and internal arrangement of the bank. But the most important point here to remember is there are two types of limits. One is the internal limit that the banks do assign for the purpose of transactional control, but the other important point is the regulatory limits. So there are certain regulatory limits, like central bank has now reduced the over the counter cash payment limits to less than 1 million rupees, uh, and this is in case of like bearer and order checks. Later on we'll be talking about the negotiable instrument and types of checks. So if and there are also reporting requirements, like threshold reporting, transactional reporting, like TTR reporting. If the same person is depositing more than 1 million rupees in any account, then this has to be reported. This has to be reported, and this is called TTR reporting. And if the same person is getting payment of more than 1 million through different checks, this is also to be reported, and actually this is not permitted. The same check cannot be divided into like with a smurfing purpose, like 900,000, 900,000, two checks. This is not allowed. So along with internal limits of approval, these AML related limits are very important for the tailors to be followed by at all times. So And again we go to the another slide. When the under certain conditions like handling of cash transactions by the tellers, transactions are not permitted to the tellers, and these transactions need to be overridden by their supervisors. So for that, tellers have to contact to the supervisors and get the transaction handled, approved by the concerned supervisor. So there can be different types of override conditions. We are going to the slide depicting the override. Maybe in certain accounts debit restrictions are imposed, and in certain accounts maybe there are transactional entries are not allowed. Maybe the restrictions could be internal, could be external, or all credit transactions could be referred, or account could have been dormant, so the teller cannot do the transactions. And maybe it's a loan account and the limits have expired, so the relationship manager, credit managers have to be asked for their authorizations. If the account is deceased and it has been it has some the account may have some garnishee orders, court's orders to stop the transactions, or maybe check is reported to be lost and stolen, and that particular check is under the stop payment orders. So all these things have to be considered before proceeding for the payment of any check, either by the teller or their supervisors. Now we go to the slide of negotiable instruments. Actually, negotiable instruments are those financial instruments which are whose titles of ownership can be transferred by the holder to the intended beneficiary by endorsement and delivery, or by simple delivery. So, for example, bearer checks are the best examples of negotiable instruments. Order checks are also negotiable. But if we go to the types of checks, so we have like account pay checks or cross checks, and the bearer and order checks. So bearer and order checks fall under the category of the negotiable instruments, and account pay and cross checks are not actually negotiable. So by actually what do we mean by negotiability is the transfer of title of ownership of that financial instrument simply by the endorsement of the holder and delivery to the intended beneficiary. So check represents the best example of negotiable instrument. Now we go to the another slide on process of accepting the cash deposits. So to accept the cash deposit, a teller has to first of all receive the cash deposit voucher plus the cash from the customer. Then the teller has to check the content of the voucher, see the account number, name, amount in words and figures, and then the money laundering related informations, the declaration, the name of the depositor also has to be mentioned. If a conductor is involved, if the beneficiary himself, if the account holder himself is not going to deposit, then conductor's informations are required as a part of money laundering, anti-money laundering regulations. So once all these preliminary informations are available, then the teller has to check the amount of cash submitted, actually count the cash denomination wise, and note the denominations in the deposit slip. So and once this verification of the provided cash is done, then the teller is ready to post the entries. But before posting the entry, account number and name must be tallied in the core banking system, and once this tally is done, then the teller may proceed for the transaction. Remember, uh, what we need to do is, just as mentioned before, if these transactions are, if these accounts are restricted, maybe sometimes accounts are restricted by these revenue department, tax office, sometimes by the court orders, sometimes by these CIA and other statutory, regulatory and enforcement bodies, sometimes by the crime branch of police. So these accounts will not allow the transactions to be done by the tellers. So transactions to such accounts have to be referred to the higher authority, and in most of the cases transactions are not allowed in these accounts. But if the account is normal and general, uh, or the account is not dormant, then the teller may proceed for the transaction. And if the transaction amount is higher than the teller's limit, then the transaction will go for approval to the head teller or the higher authority as required. Once the transaction is approved, the validation printer has to be used to print out the system generated validations to the deposit slip, a copy of which to be kept by the teller, a copy of which to be provided to the customer. Thus, the cash deposit transactions is completed. And the as we already noted, the currencies are handled in the pieces of hundreds in packets, and these currency packets contain the each denomination contain the 100 numbers of currencies in each packet, and all the loose currencies are put on the respective currency bins by the teller. So while making the cash deposit, teller will pass the accounting entry, debit the teller cash account and credit the customer deposit account, which in most of the cases these transactions, one part of this transaction is done by the system itself. So now go to the slide, let us go to the slide on the accepting the check deposit. So while accepting the check for deposit purpose, uh, the teller accepting such check deposits first of all has to check whether the check presented is of the home bank or is one bank or of the other banks. If it is of the home bank or the one bank, then such checks can be account transferred. And but before doing such account transfers, all the details of the checks have to be intact. Actually, the signature on the check, the amount in word and figure, the dates, and all these things have to be intact. Signature must be verified to proceed to. And just as explained before, the check should not have been reported as lost or stolen, or put an stop payment on it. The account must not be dormant. Account must not be frozen by the statutory orders. If everything is in order, then the teller will proceed ahead for debiting the provided check and crediting the intended beneficiary's account where the details are provided in the deposit slip. So now we go to the next slide. Uh, if the check is drawn on other banks, then such checks, OBC, other bank checks, are has to be forwarded as a clearing check. Clearing checks are accepted on validated basis. For the next clearing date, the value date has to be mentioned. While making entry into the system, value date has to be given, because the once such clearing checks are presented to their drawee banks, when they accept it and when the funds get credited to the clearing account at the central bank of the accepting bank, only then the proceeds have to go to the customer's account. Hence, the clearing checks have to be uh, accepted, and while making posting the entries, value dates are very important. If you are accepting a clearing check on a Friday, then the value date will be the next working day, maybe Sunday. If Sunday is holiday, then the next good value date might be Monday. So, in case of clearing checks, the date and time stamp of receipt has to be mentioned in the deposit voucher, and it has to be processed to the clearing. Now we go to the slide on foreign currency cash purchase deposit. Uh, we, as a commercial bank, we have foreign exchange trading license. So we also have to accept the deposits of foreign currency cash, and we also have to purchase foreign currency cash and provide Nepalese rupees cash to the various customers, maybe our account holders or walk-in customers, tourists, or the anybody else who walks in bank with relevant documents, supporting documents. They can exchange foreign currencies for Nepalese currencies. So, first thing to keep in mind while accepting foreign currencies is any foreign currency that we are going to buy or accept through our counters have to be one of the foreign currencies permitted and recognized by Nepal Rashtra Bank to be purchased by the commercial banks. So how do you find that? That is found out by the everyday foreign exchange rate card being circulated by your treasury department. If the currency being presented is one of the currency that is that exchange rate has been provided to you by your treasury department, then you can take those currencies. Number one. Number two, uh, the foreign there are various foreign currencies that we handle, more than 20 foreign currencies. So for each currency, usually the tailor has to get familiarized with such currencies, because in case of foreign currency there could be a lot of confusion, which denomination, which currency, what is the exchange rate. So these are the very important things. And what the tailor has to do is, first of all, he has to be sure which currency is it that he is accepting for purchase or deposit. And once he takes the currency, then he has to look at the rate card provided by the treasury. And if the currency amount is smaller, say less than 1,000 or $2,000, depending upon the bank's policy, the tailor can proceed with the exchange rate provided in the rate card. If he is purchasing, then buying rate to be applied. If it is cash with less, the denomination less than US dollar 50, then that rate has to be applied. And once the amount of foreign currency is multiplied with the exchange rate, then the equivalent Nepalese rupees. If cash is being paid out, then the KYC of the customer has to be done. All the relevant documents that makes him eligible to hold the foreign currency and sell the foreign currency. Sources of such foreign currencies have to be obtained for, and KYC done, sources declared, everything fine, then apply the exchange rate and proceed ahead for the transaction. Remember, one thing is very important: when you accept foreign currency cash, then you could be caught up with the fake or counterfeit currencies. So, to eliminate the risk, use of fake currency detector, counterfeit currency detectors is recommended at all times. So, there are rules and regulations while accepting the foreign currency deposit, like up to US dollar 500 can be purchased from a Nepali citizen. Up to $3,000 can be purchased from a Nepali citizen with relevant documents submitted. and up to $5,000 can be purchased from an individual by relevant documents, but any individual having more than US dollar 5,000 currency in cash usually has to submit this declaration form which he has filled in while entering the borders of Nepal. Maybe from, if it is from, so uh, at the point of entry at the customs office, such declarations have to be made, and such declared documents endorsed by the relevant customs has to be submitted for. But remember, when you are accepting a lot of foreign currency from a walk-in customer, uh, this detection of fake currency notes is also very important. So let me take a question from one of the audience, like, if the branch is not mentioned in the check for clearing, so you can submit it to the head office or the main branch of that bank, because now banks are handling the inward clearing centrally. So if the branch is not mentioned in the check, then that is not a problem. You can simply present that check to that bank's head office or the main branch, because banks now handle the inward clearing centrally. So I think that will solve. Yeah, I think I have answered your question. You can present that check to that bank's head office or central, the main branch at the head office, because clearing is now handled centrally, not by the respective branches. So there are NRBs, Nepal Rashtra Bank's limits for handling of foreign currency, like up to 500. Any Nepalese citizen with Nepali citizenship can enter into the bank's counter and purchase as a walk-in customer, as sell as a walk-in customer. Up to 3,000, they have to submit some documents. So tourists and others like NRNs, they can enter with up to $5,000 and submit the relevant documents. I mean, in cash, if it is more than $5,000, then the declaration at the customs point has to be submitted. So this is all about the purchase of foreign currency cash. And remember, coins, foreign currency coins are not accepted. Coins are for domestic circulations and use, not for cross-border purpose. So while we talk about foreign currency cash acceptance, now let us go to the cash withdrawal. Uh, Cash withdrawal is a regular function in the bank. We already discussed about the withdrawal limits. A single check drawn in favor of a single beneficiary at any point of time should not be more than a million rupees at any time. It has to be less than a million rupees. And all checks drawn to institutions, organizations, companies have to be mandatorily account paying. No cash can be paid over the counter. So mainly these payments of cash over the counters are to the individuals, individual beneficiaries. So uh, in case of cash withdrawal is not a very difficult process, but the tellers have to maintain their cool and patience, because uh, it is the point where they might make mistakes and later on face the cash shortage problems. So while accepting the cash withdrawal, checks for cash withdrawals, just as described earlier, the teller has to check every aspect of the checks if everything is in order. So, what does everything is in order mean? First of all, please check the check itself. Is it drawn on your bank on your branch. Okay, then it's your home check, then you can pay it. Now uh, check the prima facie evidence of the check, like what's the name of the beneficiary, is it crossed or open check, what's the date, is it post dated or stale check. Stale checks are more than 6 months old, whereas post dated checks are future dated checks. Both are not acceptable, we do not honor both of these checks. So date is okay, within the time range, is in the present or past within last 6 months. The it is not crossed, it's either bearer or order check. And then look at the signature of the drawer, the account holder. Signature must be tallying. And then most important thing, look at the amount in figures and words, both must be tallying. And then check the balance, available balance in the account. If there is no money in the account, then how can you pay the check? So if everything is in order and the account is not blocked by the statutory bodies, or account is not dormant, the presented check has not been reported as stolen and put on stop payment, then you can proceed for the payment simply by debiting the account of the account holder and crediting the teller cash. Remember, while making payments, the denominations have to be noted at the reverse of the check, and the same has to be acknowledged by the signature of the payee or the beneficiary. And many banks have made rule, like when they make payment over 100,000 rupees over the counter, they ask for the IDs, copy of IDs from such payees or beneficiaries. In case of bearer checks, anybody might be the beneficiary. Through endorsement, he might have got it through 2, 3, 4 endorsements. But remember, whenever you ask for the copy of ID from such payees, please obtain the original document, like original driving license, original citizenship certificate, and then such original documents, copy, get the copies copied yourself, check both the originals and copies, and get such copies signed as true copy by the presenter himself or herself. Because this has been necessary, because in the past what has happened is such checks have been presented over the counters of the banks. Banks have paid, and these payees have submitted a photocopy of the ID, and later on it has been found that such IDs were not related to the person who took away the cash, and the checks were stolen ones. So, from a criminal control point of view, it's always good to ask for the original document and copy yourself and get it endorsed by such payees. So this will help a lot. Now we go to the precautions while handling the cash in the bank. Tellers need to keep on counting their cash position and tallying intermittently in between every 2 hours or 1 hour. Whenever there is less flow of customer, use that free time to reconcile your cash intermittently. Otherwise, at the end of the day, if you find some huge surplus or a huge shortfall in cash, then you might be out of thought, because there are too many flows of traffics of transactions and people, so you get overwhelmed by the informations. So it's good to keep intermittently tallying your cash, so that once the counter time is over, you can easily submit the tally and submit your cash to the head teller. So cash reconciliation sheet and summary sheets are very important to be used by every teller every day or at all times. So for counterfeit currencies, tellers have to be very careful. Nowadays there are currency bundle counting machines that can detect the counterfeit currencies. So in across the counters where there are high volume and high frequency of cash transaction, such transactions have to be actually handled through the currency note counting machines that are capable of detecting the counterfeit currencies themselves, so that this can save the tellers and the bank as a whole. And then finally we come towards this clean note policy of the central bank. Our central bank has already enforced the clean note policy. So it's an offense to deface or to make the notes dirty. So anybody coming to the bank with very dirty notes, banks have to be take precautions. And as you know, for the clean notes we are using the white bands, and for the mutilated or dirty notes we are using the red bands. These red banded notes are to be submitted to the central bank and not to be reused for circulations. Sometimes it is found the red band notes being accepted by the tellers. Actually, tellers should not accept the red banded notes from one bank to another bank. It has to go to the central bank. And keeping notes clean is the civil responsibility of each citizen of the country. Notes have to be kept clean. And as I mentioned earlier, to deface or do any sorts of things like writing, overwriting, or cutting the edges are all criminal offenses. So this, as a part of public education, banks have to volunteer it to educate their customers and the public at large as well. So now we talk about the bankers blanket indemnity policy for the cash being kept at vault overnight at vault, cash being taken at transit, or cash at the operations floor. Banks do take an insurance policy from insurance companies that covers the risk of loss. Please remember, insurance is just an indemnity. Indemnity means if you take care of your things very well, and situations arise where you are overwhelmed by the adverse situations and loss happens, only in that case insurance companies will be liable. It means banks have to take all these security precautions. Cash area, no inflammable materials have to be used there, and vaults have to be properly locked, dual locked. We use the control of concept of dual control in cash handling and management, and guarded by the security guards, used as per policy. So if all the precautions are taken, only then the insurance policies will be valid. Otherwise the insurance company will not be liable. If bank forgets to close its vault, or if the security guards are not following the proper protocols, then the even if the insurance is done, the payment will not be done by the insurance companies. So it could be a loss to the bank. And the cash transactions, cash in transit informations have to be communicated only to the relevant people. It should not be shared with many people. And transit routes have to be changed frequently, not using the same routes. All the security precautions have to be taken. So this way we can actually conclude a very efficient cash management in the bank. Let me take one question. Here is one question from Mr. Anand Patel. One query requesting you to address in proprietary firm. Does a proprietor need to submit the ID proof of him if he himself appear as conductor for deposit purpose in this one form? Okay. Now, actually, in a proprietary firm, proprietor himself is the beneficial owner. So proprietor is not a conductor. He himself is the ultimate beneficiary owner. So proprietor will not be constituted or understood as a conductor, but as the beneficial owner himself. I hope I have clarified your question, and with this, let me conclude today's session. Thank you all for your cooperation, and thank you. That's all. Thank you. Goodbye.